The silent arrival. The observation deck of the Valerian command station hung in the darkness of space like a watchful eye. For 300 years, the Valerian Empire had monitored every corner of the galaxy. They were the peacekeepers, the enforcers, the ultimate authority. No species had ever challenged their rule. No fleet had ever appeared without their knowledge. Commander Thane stood before the massive viewing screen, his 4 arms crossed behind his back. His silver skin reflected the dim lights of the command center. Behind him, dozens of officers worked at their stations, monitoring signals from 1,000 worlds. Everything was normal. Everything was as it should be. Then the alarms began to scream. Thane spun around, his eyes widening. Every screen in the command center flashed red. His communications officer, a young Valerian named Kess, frantically worked her controls. Her hands moved so fast they became a blur. "Commander, we have multiple unidentified signatures appearing across Sector 7, Kess reported, her voice trembling. They just appeared out of nowhere. No warp signatures, no energy trails, nothing." Thane rushed to her station. He stared at the data flowing across the screen. His mind struggled to process what he was seeing. 17 massive vessels had materialized in the void. They hadn't traveled through hyperspace. They hadn't used any known form of propulsion. They were simply there, as if they had been waiting in the shadows all along. "Run a full scan," Thane ordered. "I want to know everything about those ships. Hull composition, energy output, weapon systems, everything." The scanning officer, a tall Valerian with deep purple markings, worked quickly. But as the data came in, his expression grew more confused. "Commander, this doesn't make sense. The ships are massive, larger than our dreadnoughts. But their energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. The hull material is primitive, mostly iron and carbon alloys. Yet the configuration suggests advanced manufacturing far beyond what such materials should allow." Thane felt a cold sensation crawl up his spine. In all his years of service, he had never encountered something the Valerian database couldn't identify. The Empire had records of every spacefaring species in the galaxy. Every single one had been catalogued, studied, and classified. "Origin?" Thane demanded. The scanning officer hesitated. "Unknown, sir. The ships don't match any known design. But there's something else. We're picking up faint transmissions. They're using an ancient frequency, one that hasn't been active in centuries." Thane moved to the main viewing screen. "Put it on speaker." Static filled the command center. Then, through the noise, came a voice. It was calm, measured, and spoke in a language that made every Valerian in the room freeze. It was Galactic Common, the universal language used for diplomacy. But the accent was strange, archaic, as if the speaker had learned it from old recordings. "Valerian Command Station, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. We come in peace, but we will not be ignored. We request immediate dialogue with your highest authority." Silence fell over the command center. Thane felt his heart's racing. Terran. He knew that word. Every educated Valerian knew it. The Terrans were humans, a species from a distant world called Earth. They had been discovered 3 centuries ago during the Great Expansion. The Valorians had visited Earth once, finding a primitive civilization barely capable of atmospheric flight. The humans had been deemed irrelevant, too far behind to ever matter in galactic affairs. The Valerian Empire had left Earth alone, not out of kindness, but out of indifference. Why waste resources on a species that would never catch up? The humans were added to the database as a curiosity, nothing more. And now they were here. With a fleet. Kess looked at Thane with wide eyes. "Commander, what do we do? How is this possible?" Thane's mind raced. How had the humans built such ships? How had they developed technology to travel across the galaxy? The journey from Earth to Valerian space would take centuries with conventional drives. Yet these ships showed no signs of long voyages. They were pristine, powerful, and waiting. "Send a response," Thane said slowly. "Tell them we acknowledge their transmission. But do not commit to anything. I need to contact the High Council immediately." As Kess worked to craft the response, Thane activated his personal communicator. The face of High Counselor Vex appeared, his expression annoyed at being disturbed. "This had better be important, Commander," Vex said coldly. "High Counselor, we have a situation," Thane replied. "The humans have arrived. They have a fleet, and they're demanding to speak with us." Vex's expression changed instantly. The annoyance vanished, replaced by shock and disbelief. "Humans? That's impossible. We surveyed Earth. They were centuries away from space travel." "That was 300 years ago," Thane said quietly. "It appears we underestimated them." Vex was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice hard. "Keep them talking. I'm calling an emergency session of the Council. Do not, under any circumstances, provoke them until we understand what we're dealing with." The transmission ended. Thane turned back to the viewing screen, staring at the 17 human ships floating in the darkness. They weren't moving. They weren't threatening. They were simply waiting, patient and confident. Somewhere in the back of his mind, Thane realized something terrifying. The humans hadn't come to ask permission to enter Valerian space. They hadn't come to beg for recognition or trade rights. They had come to announce their presence. They had come to show the galaxy that humanity had arrived. And the Valerian Empire, for the first time in its long history, had no idea what to do about it. The Forgotten World. 300 years earlier, Earth had been a world of chaos. Wars raged across continents. Resources grew scarce. The environment teetered on the edge of collapse. Humanity seemed destined to destroy itself before it ever reached the stars. Then the Valorians came. Their scout ship descended from the sky like a silver tear, landing in what was once called the Sahara Desert. Humans from every nation gathered to witness the arrival. It was supposed to be humanity's greatest moment, the day they learned they were not alone in the universe. Instead, it became their greatest humiliation. The Valerian scouts spent 3 days on Earth. They studied human technology, examined human culture, and interviewed human leaders. Then they left, offering no help, no trade, and no friendship. To the Valorians, humanity was nothing more than an interesting footnote in their vast database. The message was clear. Humans didn't matter. They were too primitive, too divided, too weak to deserve attention. Most humans were devastated. Some fell into despair, believing their species would never amount to anything. But others saw the Valerian visit differently. They saw it as a challenge. If the galaxy thought humanity was worthless, then humanity would prove them wrong. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was one of those people. She had been a young aerospace engineer when the Valorians visited. She had watched their ship rise into the sky, taking with it humanity's dreams of joining the galactic community. But instead of giving up, Elena made a decision. She would dedicate her life to getting humanity into space. Not in centuries. Not in generations. Now. Elena gathered the brightest minds on Earth. Scientists, engineers, philosophers, and dreamers from every nation. They formed a group called the Terran Initiative. Their goal was simple but impossible: build a fleet capable of crossing the galaxy before the Valorians returned. The world laughed at them. Governments dismissed them as dreamers. But Elena didn't care. She knew something the rest of humanity didn't. The Valorians had made a mistake. During their visit, they had left behind trace samples of their ship's hull material. Tiny fragments, barely visible, but enough. Elena's team studied those fragments for years. They reverse-engineered the Valerian technology, learning secrets that should have taken centuries to discover. They developed new propulsion systems, new hull materials, and new energy sources. But they didn't stop there. Elena realized that copying Valerian technology wasn't enough. Humanity needed to innovate, to create something the galaxy had never seen. So the Terran Initiative did something radical. They combined Valerian science with human ingenuity, creating hybrid technologies that were neither fully alien nor fully human. The work was done in secret. Hidden bases were built in remote locations across Earth. Shipyards were constructed in deep ocean trenches and inside hollowed-out mountains. Humanity's greatest minds worked in darkness, away from the eyes of those who would doubt or interfere. Decades passed. Elena grew old, but she never gave up. She trained a new generation of engineers and scientists, passing on her knowledge and her passion. One of those students was a young woman named Sarah Chen. Sarah was brilliant, driven, and fearless. She had grown up hearing stories of the Valerian visit, of the day humanity was told it didn't matter. Those stories filled her with a burning determination. She would be part of the generation that proved the Valorians wrong. By the time Sarah became a captain in the Terran Defense Fleet, the Terran Initiative had built 17 ships. They were magnificent vessels, combining the best of human and Valerian technology. Each ship was a testament to human persistence, creativity, and refusal to give up. But there was one more innovation, one that would change everything. Human scientists had discovered something the Valorians never imagined. By manipulating quantum fields in a specific way, ships could slip into a parallel dimension where distance worked differently. In this dimension, a journey of light years took only days. The humans called it phase space. It was dangerous, unpredictable, and beautiful. It was also their ticket to the stars. Sarah stood on the bridge of her ship, the Defiance, as it prepared for its maiden voyage. Around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency. They were humans from every corner of Earth, united by a common dream. All systems ready, Captain, her first officer reported. He was a man named Marcus, with silver hair and steady hands. Phase drive is charged and standing by. Sarah looked at the viewing screen, showing Earth floating in space below them. It was a beautiful world, scarred by centuries of struggle but still alive. Still fighting. Begin jump sequence, Sarah ordered. The ship hummed with power. Reality seemed to ripple around them. Then, in a flash of light, the Defiance and its 16 sister ships vanished from Earth's orbit. When they reappeared, they were in Valerian space. Sarah smiled. The journey that should have taken centuries had taken 3 weeks. Humanity had crossed the galaxy. And now, the Valorians would have to acknowledge them. Open a channel, Sarah said calmly. Let's introduce ourselves.